Book of Zechariah, chapter 12. The burden of the word of the Lord for Israel, saith the Lord, which stretcheth forth the heavens, and layeth the foundation of the earth, and formeth the spirit of man within him. Behold, I will make Jerusalem a cup of trembling unto all the people round about, when they shall be in the siege both against Judah and against Jerusalem. And in that day will I make Jerusalem a burdensome stone for all people. All that burden themselves with it shall be cut in pieces. Though all the people of the earth be gathered together against it. Doesn't that kind of sound what's going on now? In that day, saith the Lord, I will smite every horse with astonishment, and his rider with madness. And I will open mine eyes upon the house of Judah, and will smite every horse of the people with blindness. And the governors of Judah shall say in their heart, the inhabitants of Jerusalem shall be my strength in the Lord of hosts, their God. In that day will I make the governors of Judah like an hearth of fire among the wood, and like a torch of fire in a sheaf. And they shall devour all the people round about, on the right hand and on the left. And Jerusalem shall be inhabited again in her own place, even in Jerusalem. The Lord also shall save the tents of Judah first, that the glory of the house of David and the glory of the inhabitants of Jerusalem do not magnify themselves against Judah. That's very important. The Lord is going to save the tents of Judah first. In that day shall the Lord defend the inhabitants of Jerusalem, and he that is feeble among them at that day shall be as David, and the house of David shall be as God, as the angel of the Lord before them. And it shall come to pass in that day that I will seek to destroy all the nations that come against Jerusalem. It's a problem. And I will pour upon the house of David and upon the inhabitants of Jerusalem the spirit of grace and of supplications, and they shall look upon me whom they have pierced. Oh, that's a real indication of Jesus. Who did they pierce? Jesus. God, Jesus. And they shall mourn for him as one mourneth for his only son. See? More indication. And shall be in bitterness for him as one that is in bitterness for his firstborn. In that day shall there be a great mourning in Jerusalem, as the mourning of Hadad Ramon in the valley of Megiddon. And that's Megiddo, right? Something happened to the Lord there, I forget. And the land shall mourn every family apart, the family of the house of David apart, and their wives apart, the family of the house of Nathan apart, and their wives apart, the family of the house of Levi apart, and their wives apart, the family of Shimei apart, and their wives apart, all the families that remain, every family apart, and their wives apart. Chapter 13. In that day there shall be a fountain opened to the house of David and to the inhabitants of Jerusalem for sin and for uncleanness. And it shall come to pass in that day, saith the Lord of hosts, that I will cut off the names of the idols out of the land, and they shall no more be remembered. And also, I will cut I will cause the prophets and the unclean spirit to pass out of the land. And it shall come to pass that when any shall yet prophesy, then his father and his mother that begat him shall say unto him, Thou shalt not live, for thou speakest lies in the name of the Lord. And his father and his mother that begat him shall thrust him through when he prophesieth. Oh. So mom and dad are going to kill you with the sword if you prophesy. And it shall come to pass in that day that the prophet shall be ashamed every one of his vision when he hath prophesied, neither shall they wear a rough garment to deceive. But he shall say, I am no prophet, I am an husbandman, for man taught me to keep cattle from my youth. And one shall say unto him, Where are these wounds in thine hands? Then he shall answer, Those with which I was wounded in the house of my friends. Awake, O sword, against my shepherd, and against the man that is my fellow, saith the Lord of hosts. Smite the shepherd, and the sheep shall be scattered, and I will turn mine hand upon the little ones. And it shall come to pass that in all the land, saith the Lord, 2 parts therein shall be cut off and die, but the third shall be left therein. That's probably a Revelation type. There's probably a confirmatory passage in Revelation because it's all about the thirds, right? And I will bring the third part through the fire, and I will refine them as silver is refined, and will try them as gold is tried. They shall call on my name, and I will hear them. I will say, It is my people, and they shall say, The Lord is my God. Let's do this last chapter, and then we just have Malachi, and then we're in the New Testament. Chapter 14. Behold, the day of the Lord cometh, and thy spoils shall be divided in the midst of thee. For I will gather all nations against Jerusalem to battle, and the city shall be taken, and the houses rifled, and the women ravished, and half of the city shall go forth into captivity, and the residue of the people shall not be cut off from the city. Then shall the Lord go forth and fight against those nations as when he fought in the day of battle. And his feet shall stand in that day upon the Mount of Olives. This is Revelations. Which is before Jerusalem on the east, and the Mount of Olives shall cleave in the midst thereof toward the east and toward the west. And there shall be a very great valley, and half of the mountain shall remove toward the north, and half of it toward the south. And ye shall flee to the valley of the mountains, for the valley of the mountains shall reach unto Azal. Azal. I don't know what that is. Someplace, maybe. Yea, ye shall flee like as ye fled from before the earthquake in the days of Uzziah king of Judah, and the Lord my God shall come, and all the saints with thee. Yeah, this is a book of Revelation, talking about the Mountain of Olives, and he will return, and his feet shall stand in that day upon the Mount of Olives. Okay. Verse 6. And it shall come to pass in that day that the light shall not be clear nor dark, but it shall be one day which shall be known to the Lord, not day nor night, but it shall come to pass that at evening time it shall be light. And it shall be in that day that living waters shall go out from Jerusalem, half of them toward the former sea, and half of them toward the hinder sea. In summer and in winter shall it be. And the Lord shall be king over all the earth. In that day shall there be one Lord, and his name one. All the land shall be turned as a plain from Geba to Ramon, south of Jerusalem, and it shall be lifted up and inhabited in her place, from Benjamin's gate unto the place of the first gate, unto the corner gate, and from the tower of Hananeel unto the king's wine presses. And men shall dwell in it, and there shall be no more utter destruction, but Jerusalem shall be safely inhabited. And this shall be the plague wherewith the Lord will smite all the people that have fought against Jerusalem. Their flesh shall consume away while they stand upon their feet. It's kind of book of Revelation, huh? And their eyes shall consume away in their holes, and their tongue shall consume away in their mouth. And it shall come to pass in that day that a great tumult from the Lord shall be among them, and they shall lay hold every one on the hand of his neighbor, and his hand shall rise up against the hand of his neighbor. And Judah also shall fight at Jerusalem, and the wealth of all heathen round about shall be gathered together, gold and silver and apparel in great abundance. And so shall be the plague of the horse, of the mule, of the camel, and of the ass, and of all beasts that shall come, that shall be in these tents, as this plague. This is some kind of beast plague. And it shall come to pass that every one that is left of all the nations which came against Jerusalem shall even go up from year to year to worship the King, the Lord of hosts, and to keep the feast of tabernacles. And it shall be that whoso will not come up of all the families of the earth unto Jerusalem to worship the King, the Lord of hosts, even upon them shall be no rain. And if the family of Egypt go not up and come not, that have no rain, there shall be the plague, wherewith the Lord will smite the heathen that come not up to keep the Feast of Tabernacles. That's pretty serious. I don't think that's Sukkot. I know Sukkot, I only know it's in October, like the end of September, but it's also called something else. And I want to see, it is Sukkot. So it is Sukkot. That is the funnest, best feast in the world. You want to go and live in a tent for 8 days. It is radical. It is so much fun. I totally encourage everybody to do it. I would totally go to Jerusalem this year and do it. I would find a way. But, yeah, you know. I don't think they're too nice to Christians, but also, I don't know. I don't think, okay, I'm just going to leave it alone. No, I'm not. I'm going to say something. Well, I just saw this show, and it says the word Baphomet comes from a derivative of Muhammad. If you think about it, it's kind of, well, it's not if you think about it. They have documents. And then that Levi guy, they totally obstruct the Levites. They're doing it on purpose. It's totally satanic. That guy, Eliphas Levi, it's probably not his, it's not his real name. And even if it is, it's total gematria. His parents are insane. And they are corrupting the Levite name. And also, what about this fool Anton LaVey? That's not his name. He's like some used sofa salesman in San Francisco where I live. His name was something else. He had some other name. And they have a habit of changing it to Levi, right? LeVay. They do this on purpose, right? Just to be just defilers, right? Gematria defilers. Okay. This one though, this is the best, funnest feast that I will never stop celebrating since I found out like 3 or 4 years ago. It is the best. And you go and you get your etrog, and you go and you get your myrtle, and you go and you get your willow, and you go and get your palm branch. And if you live in a big city, you probably have a tree map. We do here, and I can just get them. But not the etrog. That is a specific, I kind of want to make an etrog farm, but I don't know how, but I would like to go talk to these citrus people in California somewhere. But the etrogs are very expensive. They're like $50. But it comes with your lulav. It comes with your willow. If you order it on Amazon for like $57, it comes with the 3 branches. And this is the best. And you shake your lulav. It is so much fun. I could do the prayer right now. The prayer is very similar to the mezuzah prayer. So since I do the mezuzah every day, I know it. And so it's easy because the lulav prayer is just like it, right? It's like, I'll just do the mezuzah. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kiddushanu b'mitzvoto v'tzivanu. And then it says something like, I'll leave Sukkot. And you say it before you even enter it the very first time. After you make it and you get in to start the feast. And you kind of say it when you want. And then you shake your lulav every day. It is so much fun. It's a fun feast. There's no restrictions. Except, of course, the regular. No pork and no shellfish. But yeah, and don't be sinning and stuff. But it's totally fun. Okay, the Lord is going to smite the heathen that come not up to keep the Feast of Tabernacles. Ooh, they say it twice in here. Ooh, I always forget Sukkot's called Tabernacles, though. Because I'm confused about these holidays, and it did just talk about you have to keep these 4, right? It's like, don't even play me. There are 4. Keep them. Don't play me. Yeah, 4 feasts. I have to figure it out, right? The fast of the 4th month, and the fast of the 5th, and the fast of the 7th, and the fast of the 10th. I think, okay, I'm just going to leave it alone. But Sukkot is in the 10th month, generally, right? Okay, we're at the end, the very, very end, last 3 verses. This shall be the punishment of Egypt and the punishment of all nations that come not up to keep the Feast of Tabernacles. Oh my gosh, 3 times. 3 times tabernacles, guys. It is the most funnest thing. In that day shall there be upon the bells of the horses holiness unto the Lord, and the pots in the Lord's house shall be like the bowls before the altar. Yea, every pot in Jerusalem and in Judah shall be holiness unto the Lord of hosts, and all they that sacrifice shall come and take of them and seethe therein. And in that day there shall be no more the Canaanite in the house of the Lord of hosts. That's kind of saying a lot. You know what that's saying? Well, it's kind of giving some deference to the Hebrews, because it's like, okay, he told Joshua, you have to get rid of every one of them, every single one of them. You got to get rid of all the women and children, every single one of them. You will never, ever, ever be okay until you get rid of them. And he didn't. And everybody else did not. And at the very last sentence in Zechariah, it's blaming the Canaanites. Like, okay, well, when things are good, yeah, by the way, there will not be any more Canaanites in the house of the Lord. And it's kind of like, in a way, he's kind of blaming them. They're kind of an out, you know? So, like, all these years, you know, it's like the Hebrews, they don't listen. They're not hearkening. They're not doing the law. And now the Lord's kind of like, yeah, but you know what? I make sure to get the Canaanites out. So it's kind of like, oh, it's the Canaanites that kind of helped us do that. See what he's saying? He's kind of giving them an out. Like, yeah, just come back. It's not really you. It's the Canaanites that live within your land that you have not been able to get rid of, that are causing probably some of the problems. That's kind of something else. That's very interesting. So it's not on the Hebrews, it's not on the Jews 100%. All this continuing, making the Lord mad. Now he's like, you know what? He's not saying it was the Canaanites that corrupted you, but he's saying, well, in the day when everything's okay, he's not saying, okay, he did say, he said, all of you are going to have a cup in your house. You're all going to, there's going to be bells on the horses, holiness unto the Lord. The pots in the Lord's house shall be like the bowls before the altar. Every pot in Jerusalem and in Judah shall be holiness unto the Lord of hosts. And then it says, and it doesn't say, yeah, and you know, it's like blaming the Canaanites. Like, all these chapters later, when did we even start hearing about Canaan? In Genesis, right? In the very first book, right? And look what happens here. This is the end of the Old Testament. We just have one more book. And what did they end with? And in that day there should be no more the Canaanite in the house of the Lord of hosts. It's almost like he's blaming them for all the problems. Like, if they had just been gotten rid of like he ordered them to, then they wouldn't have been so bad, as a matter of fact. So that's kind of really nice. But there is one more book. I think that would have been a perfect place to leave the Old Testament. Perfect. But there's one more book and 4 chapters. I want to try to get it done later today. Because you know why? It's the last book. I would have been very pleased if this would have just been it. Because look how poetic it is. But it's not. So there must be something more important.